Hi guys, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be just telling a story of my childhood. A train ride that our family took from Mexicali to Guadalajara, Jalisco. And I actually acquired two photos from the actual internet. There's not really any ownership that I can actually give credit to or copyright. I'm not actually acquiring this to sell. So the only description I could find on it, it was actually in Chinese. So the translation from Chinese is Máquina 2301, Ferrocarril Sonora, Baja California. The translation is Machine 2301, Sonora, Baja California Railway. And traditionally, this was the actual expedition some people used method of transportation in the late 70s, early late 60s, early 70s. Actually, through the 80s, I believe, through the 80s is when this actual railroad was actually used, and unfortunately, it no longer exists. Uh, in my opinion, you I wish Mexico would have stopped, would have just actually, how do you say, it would have just actually frozen time and just continued that cycle of actual of ingenuity, the cycle of prosperity, the cycle of freedom, of security. This railroad track actually passed through Caborca, and if you've watched some of OG Shadow's videos on Caborca, you can get an idea, get a feel of how things are there now. You know what I mean? But I'm talking about this is happening. This happened towards the end now, where stuff is just a big mess, and that's what I mean when stuff. You wish Mexico would have just frozen time, and I guess if hope not to insult anybody, but you know, try not to keep up with the Joneses. Try not to keep up with the neighbor. Let them do their thing, and that's why I believe Mexico took the wrong turn for the worse right now, trying to keep up with the United States and technology and transportation and sometimes it's fair to say, if these railroads would have actually kept functioning, kept working, a lot of people would have been employed. It would have been much bigger. The tourism would have been off over the roof, off the charts up on this type of actual expressway. I remember going through there and traveling through the Sonoran Desert. I can only describe as a movie scene. When you have the dead, the actual the skeletons of the cows or the bulls of all these types of animals that were actually uh, victims of their own environment, and the sand was smooth as silk, you know what I'm saying? And there were a couple of actual mountain ranges you had to top off, and you also got to go down them, And what I do remember is that my uncle had invited our family, my dad's older brother, and we actually had our own cabin that consisted of a couple of bunk beds. It consisted of a couple of chairs, a lavatory, just to actual toilet and a sink. No showers. We were only, according to my mom, we left around noon one day and arrived in our destination about just before noon. Just before noon is when we arrived, and that was enough. That was enough for a trip. You know what I mean? At my age. But what I do remember is me nagging my dad. I was just nagging and nagging, nagging my dad, just being a kid, because I kept hearing these actual uh, adults speak on first class, and that's all I wanted to go. I wanted to go see first class. You know, what I mean, I wanted to go see first class. And when you grew up watching Western movies, you know, Western, you know, with actual train rides and train holdups and all that. Uh, kind of see how the first class lives, and you see, and I was expecting to see this dining room area with chandeliers, you know, everything, you know, velvet. You know, that's what I had planned to see, and there was a couple of actually box cars that were actually first class, and that was quite the opposite. I was shocked. Um, as my dad, you know, he was like, "Okay, you want to go see it?" You know, he knew what it was all about, and we get there, and the actual I don't know what you call the not the conductor, but the actual the people who open up the actual the doors to enter a car. As you open up the door, the smell just hit you, and it was a foul odor. There was packed of people in seat like a bus type style seats. There was livestock in there, goats, cows, chickens, any type of animal that had value to it was actually in that boxcar, believe it or not. And the smell came along with it. And that was my first and my first and last actual encounter with a first class boxed train cart. Actually, say the first class. It was actually first class, and we made a U-turn and we went back to our car. And our car was actually pretty fancy. It was pretty modern, you know, for them times. And I remember the water was limited. They told you the water was limited. And along the way, you know, we'd make stops, and we'd drop people off, pick people up, and of course we re-upped on water, and we re-upped on supplies for the actual for the voyage. We were fed, we were fed hot meals, and it was actually pretty fun. You know what I mean? It was actually pretty fun. Uh, and we actually took the train there, and we took the train back. But but as you can see in the illustrations, Mexicali is nowhere near Tijuana. That's where we left, and we left by bus from Tijuana to Mexicali, and of course you got to pass a grade, the Rumorosa. I can't, I don't understand why I can't say the Rumorosa. Yeah, the grade. Anyways, so uh, as we're coming back from the actual Mexicali, from the actual, we're already off the bus. We're taking a charter bus back to Tijuana. And as we're approaching the grade, as we're going down the grade, actually to actually finish off the actual the mountain range, you know, the boulders. There's an accident. You know, there's emergency vehicles. They're obviously attending to a vehicle that actually veered off the cliff, and most likely fatalities. You know, I mean, the hit's pretty hard, and when you mix metal with boulders, you're not going to get a good result. You know. But I remember the actual bus driver getting off. I remember seeing the bus driver getting off, and because he was short man, and he went out to investigate, see how long the duration was actually going to take. And I assumed that we got there at the tail end of the actual cleanup, so most likely it was already being finished off uh, the actual accident scene, right? And you have to understand that in Mexico, if they're able to retrieve the actual bodies, they will retrieve the bodies on accident. But the actual vehicles, they'll leave there. They'll actually leave there. Somebody else will come by and scab, you know, not scab it, but they'll actually come by for parts and see what they can actually acquire to recycle from that actual vehicle. But they'll part it out. But to try to retrieve it by via tow truck, like in the U.S., No, they'll just leave it out there, and they'll leave it out there for a reminder, people to slow down, people to be careful, and people to be cautious through there. And that's just the way it was. And it wasn't uncommon to see uh, an actual vehicle left out there, and most of the time they catch fire, so they're all burned down and everything. As a matter of fact, though, that's where I've actually seen my first dead body. But this was as this was an execution style. It was on a rural road, uh, en route to the grade. This is a different trip though, and the actual driver of a vehicle was slumped over the actual door. I assumed to try to get out or something. He was just hanging. His head was on the outside along with his two arms, and he was actually shot. I still remember that visual, that actual picture of this as we drove by. You know what I mean? And the federal government, the federal highway patrol was already there, uh, conducting their investigation or whatever. But the body was still actually slumped over the actual door. And in Mexico, it's not like the U.S. where or other countries where they drip them over with the yellow blanket. No, that's the last of their worries. I mean, they're trying to get just expedite this actual incident, and that's their goal. You know what I mean? Till the ambulance gets there, or the coroner gets, or whoever is going to actually take uh, assumption of that body. So as the driver is actually conducting his business outside for that accident, now uh, like I said, we're coming down the grade, so we're in a slope. We're in a very, very, very vulnerable position, vulnerable actual place in the highway. So before you know it, the actual bus starts to roll. And if you're familiar with the old diesel engines, uh, you can pretty much kickstart the actual. I don't know how it actually is. Anyways, without actually with I don't know if he left the engine running. I'm not quite sure, but uh, there was a roll to the actual bus. So the bus starts rolling, and my uncle is very, very vocal, was very, very vocal, and he starts yelling out, "The bus is moving! The bus is moving!" Like we're actually rolling. You know what I mean? And so as this is actually going on, everybody starts screaming, everybody starts panicking, and all of a sudden the brakes lock up, and the bus driver, of course, short of stature, comes out and and screams that, "Hey, it's me." Nobody actually saw him actually get back into the actual driver's seat, and nobody saw that he actually had control of the actual bus. And my uncle made it seem like we were actually rolling it. It's fun. It's funny at the time. It's funny now, but when it happened, boy, we were screaming. The whole bus was screaming. And but luckily the bus driver reacted appropriately and on time, and it was just one of the things where it just you had to be there, I guess. And that was actually our trip. And unfortunately, that route is a very dangerous route now. uh Different organizations control the actual the route down to that actual destination, and it was from Mexicali to Jalisco, Guadalajara, Jalisco. You know what I mean? And it was a very, very beautiful trip. Uh, for all you, if you're young out there, and you ever get invited to go somewhere with your uncles, with your parents, with your grandparents, be that person, man. Take them up on it. You're gonna have a very good time. You'd be surprised of what other things can entertain you besides a uh, a screen, a screen on the telephone, a screen on the laptop. And I'm not saying not to take these electronics, but you know, um, we have a lot of good stories out there. We have a lot of good stories to tell you guys, and all it just takes is somebody to listen. You know what I mean? And pass them on. And luckily, I paid attention my whole actual my childhood, and up to till today. You know what I mean? I tend to listen uh, more than usual just for the fact that people have interesting stories to tell. You know, and that's just another one for old Mexican tales. And hope you guys like and subscribe. Thanks a lot, guys.